Hello everyone, and welcome to our first full training video. This video focuses around a training session that we held a few months ago, and it's really the first time that we've combined all of our tips and tricks, ideas, and concepts that we talk about in our previous videos into one place. The purpose of this video is not just to help you learn these concepts, but it's also to give you a framework to improve your own curriculum, to help you learn better. You can also follow along with this video at your own pace and get the benefits of the drills that we did. It's basically as close as attending the training session as you can get over the internet. We also hope that many of you will use this video to create your own training sessions, either for yourselves, your teams, or even your communities. As this video is quite long, we've divided it into multiple chapters, so you can easily skip through to the parts that are more or less relevant to you. You can watch it from start to finish and follow along at your own pace, or you can skip some of the instruction and get straight to the drills and see how the participants did them. However you choose to watch this video, we do hope you find it enjoyable and that it helps improve your own skills and the skills of the players around you. Remember, you get out of it what you put into it. Good luck. Order of operations for today. So we're going to do a bit of a brief intro, and then we're going to go into the fundamental personal skills drill. That's going to be the bread and butter of this session. And then we're going to close it out with some buddy movement drills. Yeah? All right, let's go. Order of operations for today. So we're going to do a bit of a brief intro. We're going to talk about some of the principles that we have when we train and the things we're looking for and we're looking to get out of it. We're going to talk a little bit about our gear and some of the things that we've been sort of going through and changing and the way we approach it in general, which, I think is helpful for us to just have a good conversation about just in general. And then we're going to go into the fundamental personal skills drill. That's going to be the bread and butter of this session. The purpose of those drills is to familiarize ourselves with, obviously, with our kit and stuff like that, but also to get familiar with the drills so that when we're playing perhaps less often, for example, in the winter when the outdoor field's not going on, those are drills that you can carry over at home. If you can't shoot at home, you can still do a lot of those drills at home. So if you're familiar with them, then so much the better. We also have distances marked off as well. So this line right here, from here to the targets, is 25 feet. We also have a pylon from this line at 50 feet and a pylon from this line at 100 feet. We have found recently that it's a really good practice to mark off your distances because most people, and myself included, are not very good at estimating ranges just on the fly. So being able to really put see what a person looks like when they're standing 150 feet away from you or 200 feet, assuming they're normal size, then you can get a good sense of, oh yeah, that person's, 100 feet away or whatever, and judge yourself accordingly. Very, very useful. So we'll do a bit of that. And then we're going to close it out with some buddy movement drills like we've done before. Again, the purpose of these drills is to get familiar with working with other people on the field. It can very well easily be us, but it could be somebody else. That happens at the outdoor games all the time where we're, playing with random people. How do you work with other people, right? How do you communicate and coordinate with people who you maybe just met or who have maybe only played Airsoft, might be their first game, right? And we've had some really good success working with newer players, and it's good to keep remembering for ourselves, working through that. So the first thing I really want to touch on is sort of the why of the training. So one of the things that we realized for ourselves a little while ago is that really, although we dressed like soldiers and, we in many ways, we were living out our sort of action hero movie sort of fantasies for ourselves, really Airsoft is more of a sport than it is, live fire training. Right? And so consequently, if you look at any other sport, like, my wife plays volleyball, she plays games every week with her team, but she also has a team practice every week for an hour, right? Where they do drills and they go through the motions. And Airsoft doesn't have to be any different. Now, of course, it's for fun. You don't have to train if you don't want to, because we've read this a lot in some of our videos. It's like, bro, why do you train? It's just Airsoft. Who cares? Just play. And that's totally fine if that's what you want to do. But for us, like, we want to push ourselves to get better. And the best way you can do that is by incorporating practice into your daily routine. Practicing in the way that we do on the right stuff, which we're going to talk a little bit about, it will help will help you build muscle memory, right? So that it ingrades a lot of these body mechanics, so that when you're behind cover and you're coming up on target, you're not thinking about, flicking the safety off or whatever it is you do with an AK. You're not thinking about how you have to do your reload from your offside, because you've practiced it a whole bunch and it's ingrained in your muscle memory. And the less you think about managing your own person and your own kit, the more time you can spend, trying to figure out where Matt went on the field before he finally shoots you and you had no idea where he was. It's really about making sure that you don't have to handle any of this, so that you can handle everything else that's going on outside. It's something you really have to train and ingrain. And when you pick up a new piece of kit, if it's not familiar to you, you start that process again, right? You can't just show up to the airsoft field with a new piece of kit like I have done before. Like when I got the Peltors from Rob, I showed up, I put them on, I'm like, great, but I'm not used to aiming my gun with Peltors on, so now I'm not as effective as I was before, and there's that adaptation period that needs to come through, right? The other piece that I think is really worth talking about is what you train, what you spend your time training. And we had some of this issue before. I mean, we've had training sessions over the years, like 2013, 2014, 2015, where we did a lot of stuff that was fun or felt like really tactical, operator, all that kind of stuff. But really, when it comes down to actually playing Airsoft, it wasn't super useful. Like, I remember we did one drill where we had someone come in with a hood on their head. And then we spun them around a whole bunch. And then there was somebody in the room with a mask and a rubber knife that was going to rush them. And they had to haul the hood off their head, and they had to draw their pistol and engage the target before the guy came out with a knife. That was super fun to do. Has that ever happened to anyone in the history of Airsoft? Probably never in what we do in our day-to-day. So if you spend 2 hours of your training doing that, and you're out of like a 4-hour training session, is that really good use of your time? And so from that point, we've really started to focus our training on the stuff that really matters a lot on the Airsoft field, which is your ready up drills, your reloads, your shoulder transition, so being able to shoot on your strong side, on your off side, and then working around your cover, right? How you work around your tires or your fortifications, your chest high walls, whatever, work your rifle around that, if you're up close, if you're further back, all that stuff. And the better you get at that, the more effective you can be on the field. And in terms of the how often, or like the when do you train, one of the concepts that I want to put out there is a lot of the things that we use in Airsoft are perishable skills. And there's a lot of science that shows that if you have a perishable skill and you're not using it, at least every 2 weeks, you start to sort of degrade at that skill a little bit. So for my money, what I do personally, at least once every couple of weeks, I'm going to grab my rifle off my shelf and I'm going to do ready ups at home. Right? If we haven't had a practice as a team or whatever, it helps keeps my skills a bit sharper. That's something I would recommend. If you have more time, then great. But obviously it's a hobby, and depending on our schedules and how much work you have or what have you, you might not be able to invest hours and hours in the training, right? So judge yourself accordingly. But I would say if you can spend half an hour to an hour every week on the big stuff, your ready up drills, your shoulder transitions, and your reloads, you'll be well served. So that's the kind of stuff that will be, especially in the winter months where we're not playing as much, is really useful. So yeah, that's it about the mentality behind our training. Just before we dive into the gear, I recently heard of a really cool analogy that I think is helpful when you think about your own training and your development. It's really important to set goals for yourself. And if my goal is to be better than Matt, which it is not, but let's assume that it was, he's improving at his own pace, what does that have to do with me, right? And so this analogy that I heard, this thought experiment that I heard, was about the idea of a 24-hour clone. Have you guys ever heard of this before? So for those who haven't heard about it, the 24-hour clone, the idea is, imagine that at the end of every day, a perfect clone of yourself is created. And then the next day, you have to fight that clone. Are you going to win? And it doesn't have to be like, fist fights, because I'm useless at fist fights, but it could be with skills. It could be an, intellectual fight. It could be whatever. The whole point is every single day you're trying to get a little bit better than the day previous. And that's really what's been driving my own development and my own practice is I want to be better than I was. I don't want to be better than John. I don't want to be better than Mash or Josh or anybody else. I just need to be better than myself. And if that's something that you carry on with your own airsoft, practice at home, you will find the benefits almost immediately because you'll be able to start seeing incrementally the things that you're able to do now that you weren't able to do 2 months ago. I think the biggest example of that for us was learning how to shoot offside. We went from basically never shooting offside to spending some time actually practicing doing it. And we got exponentially better. Like we were saying before, it's easy to go from sucking at something to being moderately good at it if you spend any amount of time. So the other piece before we dive into the drills is your gear. So we have said many times before that Airsoft is a fashion show. Some of us are more fashionable than others, and that is absolutely okay. But when you're picking up a piece of kit, if you're picking it up because it looks cool, that's totally fine. But you need to understand that that might not necessarily be the piece of kit that performs the best for you. So again, you need to practice. You need to figure out, does this actually work? And you need to be honest. If something does not work, you need to be willing to just ditch it. And I've done that many times with my kit, actually over the last even several months. I had a different GoPro mount that put my GoPro in a much better position for capturing video, but I couldn't aim on my offside with it. So is that useful to me? No, so I ditched it. So that's our approach to gear. It's trying to figure out what works, what is the most sort of applicable, the most useful for us, whether it's you're talking about slings, whether you're talking about boots. I ran combat boots for years. Now I just use regular hiking boots because they're more comfortable. They're lighter weight. They give me just as much protection, but that applies to everything. If your red dot is not doing what you need to be comfortable and go and ditch it, right? All right, so we are going to start with ready up drills. So we're going to do ready up drills at the 25-foot line. So this is the 3 pylons there. Obviously, we have 3 targets, so 3 shooters at a time. I'm going to demonstrate very quickly what a ready up is for those who may not be familiar. So for the ready up drills, we are going to start in a low ready position, just like this, right? So you're not high ready position. So your rifle's not down like this or in a rest position like this. It's going to be like this. When the command comes up, all you're going to do is bring your rifle up, acquire a sight picture on your target. If you manipulate your safety, you manipulate the safety off, pull trigger, reset, come back down, up, back down. We're going to do 5 shots on our strong side, and then we're going to rotate through to the next group of shooters. So whenever you guys are ready, get on the line. And remember, you don't have to manipulate the safety. If that's not something you're going to do in the game, then don't do it, right? Train what you're going to be doing in the game. Ready? Stand by. Up. 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 All right, next group of shooters. Stand by. Up. Stand by. High ready. Up. 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 Okay. Geez, this paper's pretty clean there. A couple of hits. Oh yeah, sure. Blame the optic. Yeah, that's looking good. All right. So this time we're going to do the exact same thing, but we are going to fire 1 shot, then we're going to transition, and then we're going to fire another shot. So 2 separate commands. So it's going to be up, shoot, switch shoulders, up, shoot, switch shoulders, and we're going to go back and forth like that until we've done 5 shots on each side. Don't worry about counting. I'll take care of that. Does that make sense? So for the transition, what you really want to do if you're using, especially if you're using a slingster or some sort of like a 2-point sling, you want to make sure that it's slacked all the way out. For my money, the best way to do this is to put your stock over your sling this way so you don't get it caught in the fabric. So just come it over and swap your hands, right? And then when you're doing it again, same thing. Now, we're not doing it under stress or for time or anything like that. But just, you know, try and be, as they say, slow is smooth, smooth is fast, right? So just take your time, just go up and over, swap your hands. Up and over, swap your hands. Make sense? If you're not using a sling, well then, you know, you can skip that step. Up. Transition. Up. Okay. Now, before we take the second shot, the other thing about shooting from your offside, as much as possible, you want to mirror your stance from your strong side, right? So if you are like me, I tend to shoot with my chest basically facing forward and my feet parallel. So when I switch over, I'm trying to keep my stance the same for my upper body, but my lower body doesn't have to move. However, if I were someone like Chris, who shoots a little bit bladed like this, right, with your feet open, when you transition, you want to switch your feet as well, so you're matching that position as much as possible. All right, guys, ready? Up. Transition. Up. Switch back. I'm not going to prompt you anymore, so just do it on your own time. Up. Up. So I'm going to prompt you for the up. I'm not going to prompt you to transition. Up. 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 Last one. Up. Okay, so we're going to do the same sort of drill that we just did. Again, the ready up is the bread and butter of all the drills that we do, right? Because that's what we do in the game basically like 99% of the time is bring our gun up on target, acquire a sight picture, and squeeze the trigger, right? That's what we do every single game unless you're not aiming with your gun or not aiming your gun at all if you're, Steph sometimes. Yeah, what's up? But so that's what we do all the time. So it's the thing that makes the most sense to practice. So what we are going to do is reload with the ready up, right? So you're just getting more reps. You're getting your sort of brain and your muscle memory built up. So we're going to go from a high ready. We're going to go up. We're going to fire a shot. We're going to reload. We're going to fire another shot, right? So something like this. Up, fire, reload, grab a mag, index, fire. Right? Come back down. Up, fire, reload, mag, up, fire, back down. Does that make sense? Any questions? We're going to do this on the strong side, and then we're going to do it afterwards on your off side or your other strong side, depending. Up. Up. Stand by. Up. You dry, Matt? Okay. Up. Come up. Acquire sight picture. Pull the trigger. Swap your mag. Put a new one in. Acquire sight picture. Safe and back down. So obviously, with your offside, you may, depending on your particular setup, need to grab your mag differently to make sure that it can go into your gun correctly. So in my case, when I'm shooting offside, where I normally would index my mags, here I have to do a beer can grip and grab it like this to slam it in there. But I know that I only beer can grip with this hand and I only index with the other hand. It's just the only way to do it. So that's what you train over and over. Does that make sense for you guys? One of the things that we some people advocate too is taking the mags and putting them the other direction when you get on the other side for your offside shooting. We find it's actually better to just have all your mags facing the same direction, because that way you can always reload all your mags regardless, in the exact same way, regardless of the position that they're in. So anytime you pick up a mag, doesn't matter which side you're on, it's going in the same way. Well, not the same way, but the same way that you've practiced with both your hands. Nice one, Josh. Stand by. Up.
No. What? No, I guess. Up. Up.
The only thing I will say about, just in general about sidearm transitions is that how often does that actually happen in a game of airsoft? That you have to draw your sidearm at that speed. You know, maybe if you're playing indoors and stuff, which I can't really talk about, but here at the outdoor, it sometimes happens that I have to draw my sidearm at the outdoor, but it's almost always in the context of I get to that doorway and I'm like, nah, I'm going in with my pistol, not with my rifle. And in that case, I can just very calmly go like this, draw it out, and off we go, right? So in terms of what you're going to spend time at home, for example, doing, I remember spending hours with a timer, like being like, all right, and just quickly doing my draws, but like it never comes up in airsoft. Much better time spent just like this with your rifle, doing ready ups, boom, boom, shooting the light switch or whatever, the Captain Riker pop figure I have about 25 feet at the other side of my house. Like that kind of stuff is going to be pay more dividends than that stuff. The other thing I will mention as well is any other pieces of kit that you're carrying, you should be thinking about how are you going to actually employ them during a game? And I'll give you two examples. Number one is the tornado grenades, which I just tried to grab and realized I don't have on my person at this time. But basically, if you have them on your person and you're going to be using them in the game, you should be familiar with grabbing them and actually deploying them. Because otherwise, what's going to happen in the game? You're going to be like, where's my grenade? Where did I put it? Is it back here? I don't know. Like you're grabbing, you're like, where is it? You're trying to release it. If you don't know what it feels like hauling it out of the kydex, you're like, am I breaking something? All of that stuff is stuff you need to have figured out, and you can figure out sort of by doing the training, by going through the motions. And again, I do this at home. I don't gas up my grenades, just clip them to my belt. And I'm like, grab it with my off high and throw them on my couch, whatever. Just getting used to that, what that motion feels like. You're not getting grenade throw practice, and if you've seen me throw grenades, it's obvious I don't practice throwing them a lot because I suck at grenade throws. But I can get them off my person with some experience. Hey, listen, I got a kill last time I threw one, but that's the first time in I believe multiple calendar years. So anyway, point is to say if you're carrying equipment, you should be proficient with it. If you're carrying a battery on your person, one thing that I found has had a lot of value for me is, again, just being at home and just putting on my plate carrier, taking a knee and just opening up my zipper, getting the battery out and going through the motions, right? Doing that stuff at home. It's stuff you can practice and it pays dividends when you hit the field, right? So those are the kinds of things that we're not going to practice today, but you should be thinking about for your own training, for lack of a better term, for your own training curriculum and trying to improve your own performance. Any questions about that? Cool. So now the next thing we're going to work on, it's going to be around cover utilization, which we've talked about before, but is, again, bread and butter for us. Sounds good? So we're going to apply the same principles that we just talked about with the ready ups, the offside shooting. We're going to apply them now using a barricade situation. And by barricade, I just mean using cover, right? So again, we're thinking about what are the things that are relevant to us when we play airsoft. Cover utilization is a huge, huge piece of that. So what we have on both sides of this is there is one of the target stands on either side. So for this drill, what you're going to do is you're going to emerge from cover. You're going to acquire your target. You're going to shoot it once. Then you are going to run to the other side and do the same thing on the other side. So you can start either. I don't really care which one you start with, but it's shoot one, move over, transition your shoulder, shoot on the other side. So a couple of things to pay attention to when you're shooting from a barricade, we've talked about this before, is that your muzzle should always be up when you're emerging from cover, right? Because if there is a person there, you want to be able to shoot at them as soon as possible. If you're coming out with just your head, and you see someone, you've got to bring up your gun. And if the person is very fast, they might shoot you before you get a chance to shoot at them. So it's always, and if there's nobody there, well then what did it cost you? Nothing, right? So it's always value added to keep your rifle up and ready to engage when you're emerging from cover. To be completely honest with you, I don't do that all the time. There are times when I don't do it, and almost every time I end up paying for it in some way, shape, or form, right? So it's really value added to it. Doesn't mean that you always have to, you must. Sure, no, there's situations, but 80% of the time, let's say, when you're in a situation where there's a reasonable threat for you to engage, you should be thinking about keeping that muzzle up. Does that make sense? As a consequence of this too, that means that you should also not be directly up against your piece of cover, right? So if I'm like this, I can't keep my muzzle up because there's no space. So as much as possible, you want to offset yourself from the piece of cover by like an arm's length or a rifle's length, right? If your rifle is super short or if it's super longer, you need to judge accordingly. But you want to offset yourself so that you can keep your rifle up. Now, there are situations where you may not be able to do that, perhaps because you're taking fire from a pretty sharp angle, and if you do that, you might get shot. So then what do? Well, you can sink yourself into the cover, and then you can work your rifle around your body so that when it's time to emerge from cover, you can come out at the same time. So when you're doing this drill, what you want to really pay attention to is the things that will help you in the airsoft game. So number one, do not keep your arm out like this. Make sure it is nice and tucked into your body. Number two, when you step out of cover, do not step out of cover with your leg and give your enemy a chance to shoot at your leg, right? So think about this leg being at the limit of the cover, putting it in line with the building. You plant it and it does not move. When you come out of cover, you're tilting. You can I do this myself. I don't know, judge yourselves accordingly. I use this leg for balance, right? So I'm tilting out like this and I'm balancing myself on that leg. And when I go to the other side, I'm doing it the other way, right? But you want to make sure that that leg stays planted at the edge and it's not coming out, because sneaky players will definitely shoot you there. All right, John. Nice. Who's up next? Nice. Perfect. Who's up next? We're going to talk just a little bit about stances really quick. There's going to happen a lot in the games that we're not necessarily standing. We're either kneeling, much more unlikely we're going to be prone, although it does happen, especially like if we're playing a defense game, for example. You might get prone behind a vehicle, something like that. And kneeling especially, I find, is something that was very useful in these types of contexts. So we'll talk about that a little bit, because that sort of changes how you need to think about how you manipulate your rifle. So Chris, you want to talk about that a bit?
Yeah, so just using these tires as an example, if you were to approach these tires, depending on what's going on, like if you're getting shot at, if you're going to take it as a defensive position, if you're bounding, whatever, it's going to be different every time. So that's why it's a really good idea to practice a lot of different types of high readies, low readies, whatever you want to call them. With your rifle up, with your rifle down, and even with it over the shoulder, okay? So if I'm going to approach this cover and I'm under fire, am I going to have my rifle like this? So what most people will tend to do is either keep the rifle tucked in like this, right? Or you can break it over the top. So if you break it over the top, that means that as soon as I plant this cover, I'm already in a position to shoot, right? I don't have to do anything else. It's also really, really useful for when you're running and you want to see everything over. You still got your rifle in a pretty good spot, and then you can snap it in. It's a lot less movement than this or this, right? So we can practice all that kind of stuff here. So depending on the situation, there's no one thing that's going to work for everybody, and there's no one thing that you should do every time, obviously. But if you practice all these different things, so if we come down and we practice in a high ready, pop up, then if we switch over and practice over the shoulder for on the side, right? Just do little combos like that to sort of get it in your head and see what works best in each situation. So Johnny, you want to start on the left side. Just fire towards the player box, whatever, and just come in and approach the target with the rifle up over your shoulder. Okay? Okay, now pop up. Right, so by having the rifle over his shoulder, he's staying closer to the cover, and he's able to move a little bit closer to the cover, right, John? Right? It's worth practicing all these different ones. So then, if the time comes where it's good to use, it's the same as, if you never practice from your offhand, like we just seen, and then you had to do it, it's a pain, right? You're not going to do it very well. But if you practice all this kind of stuff, wherever it slips in, you'll use it.
One of the things that we have found over the years is that we just think we got it, and we just do the same thing over and over. And it's not until we try a different way of doing it that we realize it's like, oh, wow, that's actually better, or it's more efficient, or it gives me an edge that I never otherwise would have realized if I didn't take the time to try it a bit differently. So like this, to me, having it on the shoulder like this, it's new, but it's something that I want to try and get a little bit better at. So that's what we're going to try and do. We don't necessarily need to use the tires specifically. We can use any sort of piece of cover to simulate that. But again, the idea is you need to think about what is going to happen in a game, and like going prone, like we were just talking about, are you going to do that every single game? Probably not. Are you going to take a knee in a game, every single game? Also probably not, but it's probably a lot more likely than going prone, right? I'll take a knee at least once every single time we come out and play, but I won't go prone every time we come out and play. So it's worthwhile, incorporating that in the training as well. And guess what? You can take a knee at home, but there's no reason you can't just take a knee, go up to a corner of any door frame and pretend that that's a piece of cover, take a knee, and then just pop out like Chris was doing.
And another one that's really good for, or even a tucked in like this, is when you've got no more room, right? Like we were doing that drill just then like this. So I need, 3 feet, right? What if you don't have that? What do, right? If you do this, that's a long ways up to shoot. And if you don't have that room, you can't do it, right? If I can come up and around now, not like this, obviously, there's a little bit of blind firing, but if I can come up around to clear that and get over it, or if I can, tuck in and get around and come up, then that's a lot better, I think, than having to do this.
I mean, we don't have to stand so far back either. It's not a cardio session.
It is now.
Well, yeah.
Send it, brother.
Yeah, sure. So you can fire like 2 rounds.
Yeah.
Pop out. That way, like, not just like, so you're still confined as one cover? Yeah. So that's when you can't really step back and focus it. Yeah, it's great.
So sometimes you are where you are and you need to fight it out. So Cal, just demonstrate now what we're going to try out.
Bad guy in front of me. Maybe a bad guy to my right, to my left. I don't know. My immediate threat right here is my front. I'm afraid that if I'm able to cover more effectively than normally, truthfully, if I come back off the curve like this, I can expose myself, left or right kind of fire. I know my threat is right there. I'm going to try and stay as close as humanly possible to my cover as I can right now without getting backing out of it. So I put your hands up here where I'm firing, go in cover, pop out again. I'll have to get back up again.
If you can see from the right side, the butt of the rifle never touches his shoulder until he's out on the trigger. That's it, right? So give it a go, John.
The key is to stay as small as possible and as close to cover as possible to stay safe.
That guy was super safe the first time. Yeah. Super safe.
You give him a warning signal.
Yeah. Pew pew. Shots over bow. Nice. All right, let's go. Yeah, you can almost. Oh, wait. All right, let's go.
Not used to this length.
Yeah.
This is bigger than what I got.
So, no, down again, Josh. Up over the shoulder. Okay. There you go. Try it again here. Okay, nice. There you go. It's weird getting used to it at first because you're so used to this being your limit, right? So you got to get used to where you can put it. Like right now, just haul it up over your shoulder. And you got these big long arms, right?
Yep.
So like you can get it back up here, right? So you could be there, right? There's no difference.
I could be right
You could be right there, right? So that's more cover from either side. That's what he's saying, right? So as you come up too, like just to make sure sometimes, as I come up, I'll like cock that thing and then fire it out, right? Nice. Look, so now, just then, when you were up, this much of your barrel was out over here. So that means you're that much closer, right? Nice. Good job. Let's get closer, Steph. There we go. Nice. Up, up, up. Man, that's a big old stock, ain't it?
It is a big stock. It is a big rifle.
Yeah.
Plus my knees are big.
Oh. The thing that I like to ride
Yep.
is the buffer, and I'll release more pressure off here.
Yep.
Because even when you're shooting, this is your strong hand, right?
Yeah.
This one's doing all. So when I'm coming up over, I might be off this like this,
Completely,
right?
yeah.
Because my finger's not gonna, it's quick to go back to there, right? Get closer. Okay. Cock it back over.
You guys are watching now, you can see Phil's gun just sucked right into his body. He's making sure he's not leaving the cover at all.
Yep. You can see when he gets up over the tires, like this much of his rifle is out over, right? But the more comfortable you get with all these positions, you're gonna slip into them more and more. That's why I started with this one, because I found going towards a building, I'm way quicker like this than I am from anything else. And it's different for everybody, but it's just something to practice, right?
Two quick, small quality life points I'll bring up real quick. Every time you shoot anything, any kind of target, even like a player or even like a paper target like that, what we do is call a search and assess. Something to make sure you don't have tunnel vision. And you don't develop kind of just like a trainingism where like, the bad guy now, training is done, he's dead, now I can just go on, game's over. You don't know what could be on that target, or what could be left to the right, even behind you at times. Every time you engage a threat and neutralize it, that bad guy, the immediate threat is going to gone. You're going to take a nice deep breaths, look to your left, look to your right, you're going to look for what? Bad guys, any kind of threat. Or if your friends are down, there's a medic around, you get to them like that, or any kind of administrative task you have to carry on with. The objective is there. You just want to kind of force oxygen in your body, so you can just breathe, be able to assess what's in front of you at the time. It's really simple. I'm here, I'm going to shoot the enemy. He's really dumb, he's not looking at me. Get 2 quick easy shots. He's down, he's done. Awesome. Now I'm just going to walk away and it's going to go on the rest of the game. No. I want to make sure that guy's now dead. Enemy could have heard my shots. I want to make sure that if they come out, I'm ready to engage them and still shoot back. With your rifle, you're going to just quickly sweep to the left, sweep to the right, and you're going to forcefully look to the left as far as you can, far to the right as much as you can, just scanning as much as possible. Every time you shoot or take down a threat, it's a very, very quick search and assess.
If I bring my rifle up and I shoot at a target and I hit him, I'm obviously not walking away. Like there's other stuff that needs to happen. And there's the whole communication piece, right? So I'll be like, come up, I hit him, and then I will say, like, I hit that guy, there's one down, 12 o'clock, whatever, and I'm looking around or trying to figure out what needs to happen next, right? One of the other things that Cal mentioned is, looking around is really, really important, because when our bodies come under stress, I mean, unless you're a stone cold killer like Matt, most of the people get stressed physiologically, and that causes you to have tunnel vision, to really focus on what's in your center field of vision. Tunnel vision is not something just that happens in your head. It's physiological, right? So by looking around and staying aware of your surroundings, you can help break that. Does that mean that every single time when I'm at an airsoft game, I bring my weapon up or my rifle up and I shoot and I hit a guy, I go like this deliberately? No, it can take many different forms, but by forcing yourself to be aware of your surroundings at all times, you can do exactly what Kyle was talking about. And the best way you can do that in your training is by training yourself to look and look around, right? It's not just, to use an expression we were talking about before, it's not just range theatrics. Like, you're not just looking around going like, oh my God, where are they? You're just, deliberately trying to see what else is out there, right?
I personally don't like a traditional, to say, or a more common transition. The shoulder bump is a way faster to do it, more effective in certain times. You have much more stability if you actually do a traditional shoulder transition. So here I am, here's my thread, or I'm going to a corner. It's much more stable to shoot and carry on fighting from the left shoulder if you do a full transition. So I'm in the shoulder, I can fight like this and still reload, everything's great. However, if I come to a corner, and I know that means right there, or I'm behind a building, I see movement on my left-hand side, and he's going to run around the corner. Like, I'm dead. There's no way I can twist the shoulders fast enough to shoot that guy from the corner. Here I am behind the corner, and he's coming. He's going to be here in like 2 seconds. I know he's going to left-hand side. I want more cover on the left-hand side. Maximum cover. Instead of positioning, I can do a shoulder bump. Really quick, just like that. That's all you have to do. I'm over here now. It's not the greatest if you wanted to reload. Not the greatest to actually shoot with long term, but the rifle's now on the opposite end of your body, so you can still get small where it really matters. On this corner, for example, right here. And if I was firing where at Pat from this corner, here I am shooting, and I see his buddy run to my left, I can pop around the corner and a shoulder bump really quick to engage him. I'm gonna shoot at Pat, bang, 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 bang. Uh-oh, his buddy's coming. Around the corner, shoulder bump, I can still effectively engage like that.
Just to sort of bring it back to like what we were talking about in terms of being open to new training, like methods and stuff. I've never done shoulder bumping, not really, right? And I've also always looked at it as like, whatever. But like, really, what you just gave a really good example of that. To me, it's like, that's something I need to start looking at, right? That's something I'm like, okay, I'm going to try doing that. And I know I'm going to suck at it right out the gate. And then very shortly, after having done a little bit, I'll be, slightly better than suck and maybe somewhere in like a below average, right? But it's part of that training process, and I have to be open to that new sort of way of doing it, because if I'm not, then I could be missing out on a really important piece of rifle manipulation that I've been closed off to. And we've already been there. Like, we didn't shoot offside. I didn't start shooting offside till I was already playing airsoft for 10 years. That's a lot of time to be doing something ineffectively, right? Where if someone had showed me on year 2 or 3, maybe I would have been a bit more open to it.
Contact left! There we go. Nice.
That was good.
Contact left! Nice.
Finally getting the steps. The order of operations first.
Contact left!
That's good at it.
Nice. Very nice, man.
Just got those little cups.
I think.
Come on,
Let me.
this.
Yeah, good.
They're dead at it.
Yeah, I'm getting A1 a lot better. I gotta find the point.
The typical things that we're going to have to do on the field is coordinate and communicate with people who are not necessarily people we have trained with in the past, and they might not even be people who have ever even played before, right? So we need to make sure that our communication with them is very clear, and that we have an understanding of what we are actually doing on the field, right? So if you use big words, if you use acronyms, if you use all that cool guy, high-speed operator stuff, and it's a 14-year-old kid, they're not necessarily going to know what you mean when you're like, I'm Oscar Mike or whatever, right? So you've got to keep it nice and concise. For our purposes for this drill, all we're going to do, this is what we've trained for years. It's moving and covering, or moving, move, or whatever you want to say. But you want to make it very clear that you are the person who is moving, and the other person is telling you, yeah, I'm good, you can go, like I've got you covered. So for this drill, we're gonna start as a buddy pair at the church. One of you will say that they're moving, the other one will try and find the target and start putting rounds down. We wanna keep shooting to keep them suppressed while the other person gets in position and they start shooting and then come to you, and you're gonna move that way, sort of leapfrogging as a buddy all the way to the new 2-story. We're gonna move laterally, okay? What is really important is keeping the volume of fire up, because of course, if we stop shooting at them, that gives them an opportunity to shoot at us. So we want to try and keep the volume of fire a bit higher. The volume of fire a bit higher, I mean to say. And we want to be very clear. What's often happens in these drills, we've had it before, is both people start moving at the same time, or both people start shooting at the same time and nobody moves, which is not really where we want to be, let's say.
Very funny, but not very effective.
Yeah, so don't take time before the drill to figure out, oh, I'm gonna move and you're gonna cover. Just decide at the moment, and then big boy rules. If one says moving, you automatically go, yeah, sure, I'll cover. Does that make sense?
Go, go, cross. Hey, you set? I got no eyes. Have any contact? Okay, moving.
Point of the drill is necessarily.
Hey, contact on this side. Move to the next door. You got eyes on. You got eyes on. No eyes? Moving around you. Contact on this side. Okay, move across. Set. Moving. What's on it? Come on. Move. Covering. Moving. Alive. Pressing your feet up. Okay.
Cab across. Contact on my side. Yeah, go ahead. Okay, he's down. I'm moving to you. Here we go. Put up on the corner. Target. Okay, move across. Contact! My front building by the far end of the village. Go, move across. Moving to you. Coming up on the corner. Set. I got a guy. Okay, he's down. Move fast, got him. Set. Good job. Yeah, got it. Yeah, moving across. Oh, I got one in the middle over here. He's down. Set. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, coming. Moving past you, John. Fire. Set. Fucking hit the field, boys.
Good job.
Yeah. I love Kirby's like saunter. Kirby takes like 2 seconds to go from here to tires, and then just slowly moseys on point. Are you gonna sling that sling, or are you just gonna leave it dangling like
I don't sling. It's not my gun.
Sling it anyway, bud.
I don't sling. Look at this. I don't do this. See, hold on.
Contact left.
Transition.
Do it again. See, that's muscle memory.
All right, let's do this correctly.
Hey, Phil.
Read.
Okay, you go, Josh.
Yeah,
Go with 3.
Are you aiming at Phil?
No.
Aim at Phil.
Shoot something.
Shoot Phil.
I'm a dick.
Shoot Chris.
Sounded nice.
Thanks. I have no idea what I'm doing, but it looks fun. Contact left!
Don't worry about being fast. Just worry about getting. This is the first time we practiced it.
Slow and smooth, stick wins the race.
Contact left! Again! Contact left! Mag change.
Get in cover.
The benefit to this one, when you do mag change, you don't have to have the awkward left hand, right hand, left hand scenario on your off hands.
This is going in the final edit of this.
Definitely going in the
Aren't you glad you have 3 cameras rolling?
It's not going in the main video. Holy